Have you ever seen a man accidentally destroy his own life because he couldn't control his temper? Imagine a dusty roadside at sunset where the air is thick with the smell of dry grass and hot tires. An officer is screaming at an elderly man sitting quietly in the back of a car. The officer is waving his ticket book like a weapon. His face is red with anger. He thinks he is the king of this highway. He thinks the man in the car is just a regular person he can scare. But as the car door slowly opens, the officer is about to face the one person who actually writes the rules he is supposed to follow. What happens to a bully when he realizes he just tried to arrest the highest judge in the land? To understand this disaster, we have to look at the two men on that road. First, there was Justice Arthur Penhaligon. He was a man of absolute power, but you would never know it by looking at him. He was soft-spoken and wore a simple suit. He believed that the law should help people, not hurt them. Then, there was Deputy Vance. Vance was the definition of fake authority. He was a small-town officer who only felt big when he was making others feel small. He had a bad habit of stopping nice cars just to show off. That evening, the sun was a deep, bloody red. The shadows on the road were very long. It was the perfect time for a man who thought he was the law to find out he was actually a big problem. This story is a scary reminder that a badge does not make you a boss. It makes you a servant. It is a journey into a moment of shock that changed how police are trained in many states. If you stay with me until the very end of this video, I have a special reward for you. I am going to share a secret. I will tell you the exact 8 words the justice whispered that made the deputy drop his handcuffs in the dirt. You will see the moment a bully realizes he has made the biggest mistake of his life. Now let's go back to the second the blue lights started flashing and the trouble began. The trouble started with a simple lane change. Deputy Vance was hiding behind a large billboard waiting for a reason to pull someone over. When he saw the sleek black sedan glide past, he didn't see a person. He saw a target. He floored the gas, his tires spitting gravel into the air. He pulled right up to the sedan's bumper, his blue lights flashing like a warning signal. Marcus, the professional driver, slowed down and stopped perfectly on the shoulder of the road. But Vance didn't walk up to the window with respect. He marched up with his hand resting on his pistol. The leather of his belt creaked, and his eyes were hidden behind dark sunglasses. This was his first psychological trigger. He wanted to look like a hunter. "License and registration, now," Vance barked. He didn't even wait for a response. Marcus calmly handed over the papers, but the deputy didn't even look at them. Instead, he stared into the back seat at the elderly man reading a book. Vance's ego began to swell. He felt like he was in a movie. He ordered the driver to step out of the car, claiming he smelled something suspicious. This was a lie, a power play used to see if the driver would get scared. Marcus stayed quiet and followed orders, but the man in the back seat finally looked up. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. This calm look made Vance even more aggressive. He started shouting about how people like them think they are above the local laws. The situation turned dangerous when Vance reached into the car and tried to grab the book out of the older man's hands. The older man held onto it firmly. This was the ego clash that Vance couldn't handle. He felt his face get hot, and a red flush of anger crept up his neck. He screamed that he was going to arrest everyone for interfering with an investigation. He pulled his handcuffs from his belt, and the metal gave a cold, sharp click. He told the man in the back seat to step out, or he would be dragged out. He was so focused on being a bully that he didn't notice the small leather folder the man was now holding. Vance reached for the door handle, his heart racing with a fake sense of victory. He was about to cross a line he could never uncross. The car door opened slowly. Justice Penhaligon stepped out onto the gravel, standing tall despite his age. He didn't yell. He didn't even raise his hand. He simply handed the small leather folder to Deputy Vance. The deputy snatched it away, ready to laugh at whatever fake ID he thought was inside. But as he flipped it open, his whole body froze. He saw the golden seal of the United States Supreme Court. He saw the name of the man he had just threatened to drag out of a car. The red color in Vance's face vanished, replaced by a sickly pale white. His hand started to shake so badly that the folder slipped through his fingers and hit the dirt. The power shift was instant and total. The deputy, who just seconds ago was a screaming giant, now looked like a frightened child. Justice Penhaligon looked down at his folder in the dirt and then looked back at Vance. He told the officer that he had just witnessed 3 separate violations of the Constitution in less than 10 minutes. He explained that a badge is a heavy responsibility, not a toy for a bully. Vance tried to apologize, his voice cracking and trembling, but the justice stopped him. He told Vance that an apology wouldn't fix a broken character. The fallout happened faster than Vance could imagine. Because Marcus, the driver, had stayed calm and recorded everything on his phone, there was no way for the police department to hide the truth. By the next morning, the local sheriff had received a phone call from the state attorney general. Vance wasn't just suspended, he was stripped of his badge right then and there. An investigation found that he had been bullying travelers for years, and this time, he had finally picked the one person who could make him face the music. Now, for the 8 words I promised you. As the deputy stood shaking in the dust, Justice Penhaligon leaned in close and whispered, "You are not the law. You are its servant." Those 8 words ended Vance's career because they reminded everyone in that town what real justice looks like. This story shows us a deep truth about our world. Real authority doesn't come from a gun or a loud voice. It comes from following the rules even when no one is watching. Deputy Vance thought he was a lion, but he was just a man with a loud roar and no heart. Justice Penhaligon didn't need to fight because the truth was his weapon. If you were standing on that road and saw an officer treating an elderly man that way, would you have the courage to speak up? It's a question that defines who we are. Thank you for watching this masterpiece of justice. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive into the human soul.